Happy Sabbath, everybody. My name is Peter Bastian. I'm a physician over at the Center for Health Promotion at Loma Linda. Here's just a little bit about myself. My focus is clinical preventive medicine, which includes primary care, obesity medicine, and hormone replacement therapy. I'm board certified in lifestyle medicine and preventive medicine, and I often do squats with my patients. My research interests include novel obesity treatments, which often combine FDA-approved weight loss medication with natural botanicals. I will be attending, giving a wellness live talk this fall entitled Exercising on Empty at Loma Linda. It'll be a live webinar. I grew up in Massachusetts. I attended Dartmouth College, and I went to the University of Massachusetts Medical School. I completed a residency in preventive medicine at Loma Linda. My wife, Maria Elena, and I moved to Loma Linda because of the just wonderful faith community here at Loma Linda. I'm fluent in Spanish, and I love to take walks and hold the crooks with my wife and dogs, especially when the COVID pandemic is over. And in a lot of ways, that's why you guys aren't seeing me in person here, but I hope to be doing future presentations in person with you guys, and I hope to meet each one of you. So let's get started here. This talk is called Plant My Future, or Plant Your Future, and in Spanish that would be Siembre su futuro. And the reason why I have this in Spanish is it's really in honor of my wife, because she has not only helped me prepare this talk, but she's originally from Ecuador, and she speaks Spanish, and we speak Spanish at home. But she's the reason why I've been able to put into practice what I preach in terms of whole food, plant-based nutrition, and lifestyle medicine in general. So this Bible quote is from Genesis 1:29. I'll read the Spanish, and then I'll give you the English translation. Yo les doy de la tierra todas las plantas que producen semilla y todos los árboles que dan fruto con semilla. Todo esto les servirá de alimento. Génesis 1:29. And so it says Genesis 1:29. And God said, Behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food. And so we'll talk about how healing that revelation was, that gift from God was, and continues to be when we take advantage of a whole food plant-based diet. So let's plant our futures, shall we? So this is where my wife is from, Ecuador. She's from an area called Chimborazo with this mountain here. And this is the size of Ecuador. And this is the size of California. And you can see where Ecuador is located. Famous for their alpacas. And they like potatoes. And yes, they actually eat guinea pig. My wife will eat meat sometimes. I myself am mostly whole food plant-based. So what is preventive medicine? I talked about that at the beginning. Preventive medicine is focusing on the health of individuals and communities to protect and promote and maintain health and well-being, and to prevent disease, disability, and death. So people will say both preventive and preventative. Actually, I guess it's preventive, but they both kind of mean the same thing. But if you talk to certain people, they might get a little touchy if you use the word preventative. But we'll just keep that between you and I. So today we'll look at one of the 5 pillars of preventive medicine. And this is what Pastor Bob Villanova wanted me to speak on today, was whole food plant-based nutrition. But it's one of 5 pillars. Of restorative sleep is another, emotional health, spiritual health, and physical activity and exercise. So, this is me when I had a lot more hair in my head. It was also when I was a lot thinner. This was me in my 20s. And I'm in Costa Rica doing some mission work. And this was my chiropractor at the time. And this was shortly after graduating from Dartmouth College. So you could see I was in pretty good shape. But I ate whatever I wanted. This was one of the things I did with the students in Costa Rica. I was a black belt in Taekwondo at the time, and so in addition to teaching computer classes and emotional literacy to the kids, we also had some fun with these classes of Taekwondo. And again, you can see how thin I was. And so then life happened. I got back from Costa Rica and I started working teaching English as a second language. There's my wife there in the front, and there I am over there. And I enjoyed teaching English as a second language to my students, and we would always celebrate with lots of food at the end of each semester. And so I got comfortable. I started to settle in to what you would see at a lot of workplaces. A very salty and sweet place. And I kind of felt like this guy, Saturn, if you remember the picture there of him devouring his son. Well, here I have him devouring a cupcake, and it's kind of how I started to feel after I had been doing this routine of the sweet and salty excess for a while. I felt kind of grotesque. But I thought at the time it was quite delicious, and I thought I was winning. You know, the fact that I would always eat delicious food, I felt like I was somehow getting away with something because it didn't seem to affect my health. But after a while, I started to feel not good. I started to put on weight. And I started to feel I started to have more problems with acid reflux, with snoring at night. And as much as you can see here, I like to go hiking and exercise. That wasn't enough. That was me 4 years ago. I just felt totally crusty. And my blood sugar was actually was one of the first signs medically that not only was the changes skin deep, but they were starting to affect my blood vessels and my metabolism. So I had to do something about it. I was eating this type of food. This was the first thing I had to kind of look at, was the slop, so to speak, that I was letting myself be served every day. And you could replace the guy there with the spoon with any one of the fast food places, and you get the point. I wouldn't eat that stuff on an empty stomach anymore, but I did, and I lined up for it in the past. So if we look in general, though, we're not alone. I mean, I'm not alone in that. The Western diet, it's everywhere. We do live in the West. And I mean, there have been, I guess, some changes. There is this movement called lifestyle medicine, which focuses on the vast amount of population-based research showing that hands down, eating whole food plant-based nutrition is the key to preventing and reversing chronic diseases such as hypertension, diabetes, cholesterol, and even Alzheimer's. So this is interesting. I thought Pizza Hut now serving vegetables. They actually had to announce it. As important as the fact that they deliver. So, but we're not alone. And Pizza Hut is not the only place to blame. This has been going on for a long time. If you look at this map here put out by the CDC, 33%, and this has gone up since, of adults in the U.S. have the disease of obesity. And that's a BMI greater than 30. BMI stands for body mass index. It's a combination of height and weight, and they come up with this number. It's not always the most accurate, but we can get into that in the future as well. But look at this second number. At least 70% have excess weight. That's the vast majority of us have an excess spare tire around the waist. And we know how hard it is to get rid of. But let's see where this all started. So if you look back in 1985, from white, blue, orange, red, these are the obesity rates in each state and how they increase from 1985 to 2010. And you can see white is the least, and then here you have 10%, less than 10%, 10 to 14%. So this is 1985. Let's take a look when we go to 1988. Okay, so a little more blue. 1991, we're starting to get some darker blue, which is 15 to 19%. 1994, the whole country is at least blue, and you're starting to see some darker blue through the Rust Belt and through the southern states. And so we're starting to see close to 20% of the population with obesity in 1994. Go forward to 1997, we're starting to see obesity in California now, up to 20% of the population, and we're starting to see greater than 20% in the same places where we started to see the obesity crop up in the southern states and then you go to 1999, you can see there it's getting worse in those same places in the southern. 2001, California has joined the ranks of now 20 to 24%, and now we're first starting to see 1/4 of the population in some states with obesity, and then that trend just starts to exponentially grow in 2000, 2007, 9, and 10. Fast forward to 2016 to 2018, just a little quick note on how obesity cuts across racial and ethnicity lines, but how there are differences in each of the groups. So if you look at non-Hispanic whites in California, the rate of obesity is at 20 to 25%. Take that into Hispanic adults in California, and it goes way up to 30 to 35%, the rates of obesity. Now let's add African American, so non-Hispanic black, and you can see that it's the same in California. There's something about California, but look at the other half of the United States. If you're African American or black, your chance of having the disease of obesity is greater than 1/3 in these states, and it keeps climbing. So what I'm going to show you today is one of the solutions to this dietary pollution that's been going on. And recetas veganas, they're saludables, simples y sabrosos. So these are vegan recipes. They're fit, fast, and flavorful. They're not this type of vegan recipe. Okay, so I know when people hear the word vegan, they think of people miserable, not able to eat anything. And I'm going to show you how it's not a miserable existence. Not only how delicious the food is, but the benefits that you're going to feel. You're going to just feel better. And I'm talking about whole food, plant-based nutrition that is savory and sweet. So nutrition is not dieting, not nasty, not boring, and not, you'll see later on, for the wealthy. Basically, the more plants you eat, the lower your blood pressure. And this is by a study, the Nurses' Health Study, with over 200,000 participants. Take a look, a little background on animal products and blood pressure. First of all, the average person who eats more of a meat-based diet, they're going to gain 5 more pounds per year. And over a lifetime, a person who is eating meat is going to weigh about 30 pounds more than that same person who is just eating whole food, delicious, plant-based foods. Here we look at a study from the 2015 Journal of Hypertension. Again, hundreds of thousands of participants showing that eating any animal flesh, whether it's flying, running, or floating, will increase the risk of high blood pressure. Now, what about fish? Fish is a little more of a gray area, and just to be honest, there do seem to be some benefits from omega-3s in some of the oily fish like salmon and mackerel. And there does seem to be some decreased risks in colon cancer. But as far as it lowering your blood pressure from major NHANES 1 study, which is a major population health-based study, they didn't find any association between fish helping with blood pressure. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not a more healthy substitute, obviously, than eating chicken or red meat. Because yes, it would be an improvement because it doesn't cause an increase. It just may not lower it compared to somebody who's eating mostly a whole food plant-based diet. So if you're eating a plant-based diet, you decrease your risks for so many things, including a lot of the risk factors for stroke, obesity, blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, and just overall inflammation. Now, if you decide to go without eating eggs or any dairy, that's called the vegan. And a huge study called the EPIC Oxford showed that those who choose to eat whole food plant-based alone, they get the most fiber, right? Because fiber comes from plants. There's no fiber in animals. And they get the least saturated fat. They also have the healthiest weight and cholesterol when comparing these two groups. So, is it safe? I mean, the koala in the back row over there wants to know. Yes, it is. Fruits and vegetables are packed with vitamins and minerals that people often think are absent. And there's no such thing as an incomplete protein in vegetables. They are all complete. So you can get plenty of protein from cooked beans, iron from spinach and pumpkin seeds and beans, potassium from beans, and from many other vegetables such as avocado and kale, calcium from leafy greens such as kale, broccoli, spinach. And people say, well, what about the B12? I haven't met a whole food plant-based person yet who has low B12. Theoretically, it could happen. And how did people get their B12 before? Well, it turns out that there's a lot of B12 in the soil. And so before we got so obsessed with, and rightly so, but obsessed with cleaning our food, disinfecting it, running it through radiation to decontaminate it, there was a little more dirt hanging around on the fruits and vegetables, and they had a little vitamin B12 in that dirt. And so that's why it wasn't a problem. But today, it's still not an issue because most of the fortified cereals and soy milk and veggie burgers all have B12 in them. And if you need to take a delicious B12 sublingual supplement, then go for it. But again, I haven't seen anybody in my practice who is eating whole food plant-based with that problem of their B12 being too low. So kind of just a special message for parents before we get into how to go about this. Have you ever flown on a plane? I know it's hard to imagine these days, but I did just buy some stock in American Airlines and Delta while they're down, and I kind of recommend you guys do that, but I digress. So the part that they talk about, you remember when they tell you to not put your oxygen mask on until on a child until putting it on yourself first. Well, that's even more important when you're trying to make your child eat healthier before you do. Remember, you need to set the example and put the healthy food in your own mouth first, and then your children are more likely to follow. So there's many ways to go about this through diets that are combinations. If you're having trouble with the idea of just plants and no animal products and nothing processed, you might want to consider the DASH diet. 5 servings of fiber-rich whole grains, 4 servings of vegetables, 3 servings of fruits, 2 servings of dairy, 2 oily fish per week, 1 teaspoon of salt, and yes, even up to still 36 ounces of sugary sweetened beverages. And this DASH diet, which is dietary approaches to stop hypertension, still lowered the risk of stroke by 20%. How about the Mediterranean diet? It's loaded with fruits and vegetables, whole grains, olive oil. They even include a moderate intake of seafood and wine. Now, I don't recommend anyone starting the habit of drinking alcohol. The vast majority of studies show that drinking alcohol does not reduce any cardiovascular problems. On the contrary, it does contribute to high blood pressure. And if we take out all the sick people who did not drink alcohol and just leave the healthy ones, they do a lot better than healthy people who drink alcohol, than healthy people who don't drink alcohol. So there's no benefit to starting to drink alcohol. So is that as clear as mud? But really, all of these diets have in common the more plants in your life, whether they're vegetables, fruits, or grains, or legumes, or beans, and the less animal products and less processed products, those are going to give you healthier blood vessels, less chronic disease, and reversing chronic disease and preventing it from happening in the first place. The Mediterranean diet, by the way, was just voted the top diet in the country, and the DASH diet was around 4th place. So here's a daily amount of just a tip for salt. I usually measure it out in a teaspoon and then put it in a nice glass bowl and then pinch out the amount that I feel I need per meal. This actually helped me to get off of salt altogether, but it was a nice way to know that I wasn't going over the daily excess amount. This only works if you're not getting hidden salt from restaurant or fast or processed foods. The food that's processed from a lot of the major food restaurants are loaded with salt. That's why everybody enjoys going out to eat. If you look at sugar, the other white stuff, in 2015, the WHO stated that a 20-ounce bottle of Coke had 16 sugar packets in them. That's out of reach for most of the recommended amount of sugar per day. So for men, it's 9 sugar packets maximum per day. I know it still sounds like a lot, but again, these are hidden in our foods. And for women, it's 6 sugar packets. Each sugar packet is about 4 grams of sugar. Okay, so there are some countries that, by the way, isn't he cute? But seriously, Mexico is a great example of stewardship for the next generation when it comes to sugar. In 2014, the country levied a 10% tax on soda and other sugary drinks, and as a result, Mexicans reduced their purchases of sugary sweetened beverages by 12%. This tax is predicted to prevent 20,000 deaths from type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure over the next 10 years alone, and save about $1 billion. No wonder why there's a growing wall between Mexico and the U.S. Mexico is actually ahead of us when it comes to reducing their sugar intake. So that begs the question, why haven't we created a sugar sanctuary for our children? Well, it's because it's in everything that we eat. If you and your kids don't drink soda, how about ketchup? Almost half of what you're putting on those fries or hot dog is sugar. So how do we change this around? What are the foods that we can eat that will bring us health, longevity, and decrease the disability that we often see our older population getting in the last couple decades of life? How do you live to your last days with little disability so that you're enjoying life to the fullest? Well, one reason is superfoods. For example, tomatoes. Ask for diced tomatoes on the side, which are actually a superfood because of lycopene. So why is that so potent an elixir? Lycopene helps vasodilate the arteries naturally, avoiding those pesky blockages that can lead to a stroke and a heart attack. So what it does is it helps the blood vessels relax. At least 10,000 micrograms of lycopene per day is what's recommended. That's about one wedge of a watermelon. That's got about 12,000 micrograms, or about 20 cherry tomatoes. You can also get it from about a half a can of tomato sauce. Just make sure that sauce is low in sugar and salt. Moving on, another superfood is walnuts. Excellent brain food, packed with omega-3, magnesium, selenium, and vitamin E. It's a handful a day is a good way to start to get those vitamins in and to start making some changes with the brain. If you can't stand walnuts, try almonds. They have 400 milligrams of magnesium, which is the most of any nut out there. Magnesium helps to prevent the blood vessels from constricting and improves blood flow. So magnesium in walnuts is about 3 times as much, in almonds is 3 times as much as there are in walnuts. Another superfood is avocado. Avocado because it has twice as much potassium than a banana and probably about 10 times as much fiber and a lot less sugar. So potassium, as we know, helps reduce the blood pressure as well by relaxing the walls of the blood vessels. Most Americans barely get half the recommended amount of potassium, which is about 4,700 milligrams a day. Again, bananas have about 425 milligrams of potassium. It's often held up as the poster child for potassium, but there are better sources. As I was saying, an avocado has 1,000 milligrams of potassium per day. That's the average size. But don't take potassium supplements. Make sure you're getting these minerals that we're talking about here from whole foods. If you don't get it from the whole food, you're missing the way in which we absorb lots of these minerals and vitamins, it is by combining these vitamins and minerals with fiber. Fiber is very important, and I don't mean taking a fiber pill. Another superfood is kale. Loaded with calcium, but in general, the dark green leafies, also beans, fish with bones, if you're considering a dash or Mediterranean diet, are going to have lots of calcium. Again, the most important point when I talk about minerals and vitamins is not to go out and buy these supplements at the store. Our digestive system comes with this big Venus flytrap on top, our mouth, for a reason. We're meant to consume these vegetables and chew them using our teeth to grind up the food in just the perfect way that our digestive system was created so that there's the optimal amount of absorption. And you just don't get that when you dump in all the vitamins and minerals in a powdery pill. So what are some of the benefits? Again, it reduces these whole food plants, reduces inflammation, reduces weight, increases your sensitivity to your insulin. So for those who have prediabetes or diabetes, this is how we get to reverse them, is you become sensitive to your insulin again. And we can talk more about that in the future. So feel like you can't get enough protein from a plant-based diet? Well, the recommended daily allowance of protein for most people is between 50 and 60 grams per day, not the average 120 that 97% of Americans get. All you need is 40 to 60 grams a day to keep yourself at a good protein level. Now, what's one way to get there with a delicious meal? Try eating a cup of cooked lentils, 20 grams of protein, with an avocado. Together, that's 25 grams of protein. You could have that twice in one day. Although I'd recommend going to some of all the other delicious versions and opportunities to get protein. But this is just one way to do it, and it's completely plant-based. This is Patrick Baboumian. I don't know if you guys have seen recently the documentary Game Changers. I actually discovered this guy before that documentary came out, and this was a presentation I gave about strength and resistance training and muscle building, and the common misconception, the myth, that you need to eat meat. So people eat meat thinking that they will become as strong as an ox, forgetting that the ox eats grass. So in addition, if we have excess protein from eating too much, that excess protein either gets turned into sugar, which then gets turned into belly fat, or excess protein can sit in our colon and start to rot and cause precancerous changes. Only about 3% of Americans get enough fiber. Now, I show this often. People are like, what is that? And then they understand what it is, and they're like, ooh, gross. This is a Paleolithic stool. But what this shows is that we were made to take in, for a very long time, lots of fiber. And actually, we used to eat a lot more fiber than that we do today. And we used to have larger stools because we got a lot of what I like to call vitamin F fiber. For most of our existence, our gastrointestinal tract has been accustomed to very high fiber-filled diets. Fiber improves the speed of transit of food and toxins through the GI. That means less sugar and less inflammation gets absorbed in our blood vessels. As you can see, we used to get 104 grams of fiber back in the Paleolithic era. Today, in our tennis shoes, we're getting about 12 to 18 grams. Now, what's recommended for women is 28 grams of fiber a day. For men, it's about 10 grams higher. So it's very important, men, guys, gentlemen, that we're getting enough fiber. Our lives depend on it. So you can get that through beans and legumes, whole grains, and from vegetables. Speaking of vegetables, avocados, which do have lots of vitamin F, fiber, also have healthy plant fat. Did you know that avocados are 70% fat? Well, that's why a lot of Americans think, I don't want to eat too many of those. But actually, we need plant-based fat, healthy fat, to feel full and to stave off hunger and disease. As we get in healthy fats, it actually helps reduce excess fat tissue called adipose, actually reduces the inflammation in our blood vessels, and there we go again, increases our insulin sensitivity and makes us feel more full. Basically, this is your brain on fruits and vegetables. Any questions? So, thinking, well, okay, this all sounds good, but you haven't seen my kitchen. I don't have a time or the space to prepare this. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Do you have a kitchenette? Do you not have much space? You're not accustomed to how to go out and buy these fruits and vegetables and how to prepare them. This is a great section here, women, wives, to confirm some of the things you already know. And for men, this is something to maybe come out of the man cave and to see what can be done in the kitchen. So take a look at this. This used to be the size of my kitchen. And so I'm going to go take you through breakfast, lunch, dinner, and even a snack. And before each meal, I'm going to cite some major landmark study regarding the health of plant-based whole foods. So looking at breakfast first. Here's has anyone seen this sign on the 10 going into San Bernardino? It says all new, but there isn't anything new about this. And trust me, you won't be just gambling your money like you would at San Manuel. This is gambling away your life here. But it's amazing how hard it is to eat a healthy breakfast when this is the trademark American breakfast. So here's some results that hopefully will show you why it's important to eat a healthy breakfast. So, and the results here from this study, the Adventist Health Study 2, the healthy results are actually more robust in males. So yes, guys, if your wife cooks and she isn't feeding you a vegetarian diet, she is trying to kill you. So vegetarian diet patterns and mortality in the Adventist Health Study 2. Basically, this showed that vegetarian diets are associated overall with a lower, let me move this out of the way here, with a lower all-cause mortality. Sorry, that got covered up by my picture here, by my noggin. But vegetarian diets are associated with overall lower all-cause mortality. So let's look at a way to do that with breakfast. What I like to call tofu scramble, or in Spanish, tofu revuelto. Really easy, the ingredients. They don't have to be exact. And this little phone here is an opportunity to take a picture of this if you find this would be helpful for you. So I'm just going to go through this pretty quickly. You can see the ingredients here. Like I said, the measurements aren't as important as using your own creativity with this. Really easy though. You boil in a 1/2 inch or 1 centimeter of water. You throw in some turmeric. You've already pressed your tofu and made it as firm as possible. You chop up some red pepper, cut or crumble the tofu, and then put all the ingredients inside that boiling centimeter of water, and mix it all together, and it should be ready in about 3 minutes. Serve it as much as you can eat in the plate. And the tofu is going to give you very healthy plant protein, and it's a soy protein, contrary to myth, is very safe and healthy for women to eat. It's actually a protective effect against the development of breast cancer, and is very good as an alternative for women who are feeling that they are tired of treating their osteoporosis or osteopenia with medication. Tofu is a very healthy alternative. It has isoflavin in it, and has been shown to help with osteopenia and osteoporosis. Like any good marriage, it takes two, especially for breakfast. So let's add to this tofu, this protein, some healthy fat and some healthy fiber. And I call this trick or treat avocado because basically you're just using avocado on a whole wheat bread or whole grain tortilla. Ezekiel bread you can try, or you can order on Amazon, which I don't recommend you buying their stock right now. It's overpriced. But you can get Santa Fe or Olé tortillas, which are loaded with fiber, and they taste wonderful. So you get your avocado, you mash it up, you toast your tortilla or your bread, you put it on, and then finally you add pumpkin seeds. Enjoy the full flavor. And truly a breakfast of champions when you combine the two of these together. I guarantee you'll feel full and satisfied. Let's take a look at lunch. So lunch, I put here in how to make a hummus from chickpeas. And you can use miso paste instead of salt. You take all the ingredients. You can use cooked chickpeas or you can use canned chickpeas. People say fresh is always best, and it's true. But those canned chickpeas on the right look really good. So you can decide to do it the old-fashioned way. You can soak your legumes, such as chickpeas and beans. I present to you the slow cooker. Notice that it doesn't require you to be next to it to work. One can also use the Instant Pot, and the chickpeas will be ready in 10 minutes. Just make sure you ask your spouse if you're going to make the hummus that your spouse cleans the pressure cooker or the slow cooker or the Instant Pot. So you guys divide up the tasks. So you rinse your beans, remove any stones, which I really don't see these days, into the slow cooker, cover them with water, and then they cook while you sleep. Top 10 reasons not to fear a slow cooker, guys. It's $20. Just don't bite the machine that will really feed you. It's not your boss. It's a gadget, guys, I swear. It won't burn the house down either. It's quiet while you watch football or soccer. It will have your food for you the whole week. There's only two settings: unplug and plug. There's an app for that too. That's for the younger guys in the crowd. And remember, guys, you don't want to cook, so let this machine do it for you. So moving on here, you put the chickpeas with their juice in a blender with all the seasoning that we had in the previous slide, and blend it until you get a paste. 30 seconds max. It doesn't take long. Serve it with sun-grown vegetables with your lunch 3 days a week. You can buy all of these, and if you notice, a lot of these come pre-cut or they're already at a bite size. You just throw them in a plastic bag and bring them with you to work. If you want to get mushrooms that are high in vitamin D, you want to get 100% UV grown mushrooms. They'll have about 50% of your daily intake of vitamin D. You can get those for $2 a pint at Walmart. And I did buy stock in them recently. So afternoon snack, Power-Jolt. Here's sort of the do's and don'ts. Do give the Shasta Cola the shaft. You don't want to be drinking that as a pick-me-up. Don't use Red Bull. Chips are for poker, not for your afternoon snack. And try to be productive from the hours of 2 to 5. And don't use those hours as for your afternoon nap. And that way you don't go into panic at 4:30 trying to finish everything. And you'll find yourself getting a little extra free time on the weekend. Things you don't want to do: don't touch that cake sitting on the break room table or the pastry on the kitchen table. It's not your birthday every day. So here's some translational research by the PREDIMED study, which was a big study looking at the Mediterranean diet. Let me show you sort of the main findings here. Was that a diet that was primarily Mediterranean, supplemented with nuts, is associated with delayed progression of plaque development in the carotid arteries. That's powerful. So you can power up with unsweetened almond milk, 30 calories, dark chocolate, 70% cacao, cacao nibs, if you can tolerate those. Some people think they're too bitter. They have lots of fiber, lots of iron, antioxidants, magnesium, and they have a non-caffeine pick-me-up called theobromine, naturally occurring. Dinner. So what does dinner look like? Well, let's take a look at a research study here. This is based on the Nurses' Health Study, and they show that high animal protein intake was positively associated with cardiovascular mortality, and high plant protein intake was inversely associated with all-cause and cardiovascular mortality, especially among individuals with at least one lifestyle risk factor, such as high blood pressure, high cholesterol, smoking, alcohol. So the reason why I mention the animal products here and how powerful it is to avoid them is that dinner time is often the time where traditionally Americans believe that's where the meat comes, is at dinner. So let's take a look at a non-meat. It's called bean stew in the slow cooker. These are all the different ingredients. Just take a picture of that. And you can see it's black beans, black-eyed beans, Roma tomatoes, different colored peppers, red onions. Again, the numbers in front of each of these are not as important as you just putting some of these together and just having fun. So here's some of the vegetables. Don't forget your seasoning. Heavy on the garlic, the jalapeno, the Italian seasoning, low on the salt. Use that slow cooker thing and add some water, and it'll cook it overnight. Chop the tomatoes however you want. Rinse and repeat with the other vegetables. You know, this is where wives, you can ask your husbands to get out of the man cave. It'll give them a good cry. That's really what they're looking for when they go to the man cave. Especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, the two of you can cry together and let out a good emotional release here when you cut the onions. Make sure you add your seasoning. Remember that whole food plant-based is not devoid of flavor. It is actually enriched and more flavorful than animal-based. Enjoy the bean stew with avocado. Once it's ready, you can put the rest of it in the fridge or the freezer. It can accompany a salad, maybe some whole grain tortilla, and there you have it. And I'm just going to quickly go through a few things for food prices, because people say I can't afford to eat healthy, but my question, with the price of healthcare and copays and Medicare D-donut hole, can you afford not to eat healthy? And really, the last time I negotiated with a grocer to buy beans, I wasn't shocked with how inexpensive they were. Always shop the outer aisles. Make a list of the brain foods ahead of time. Go with a friend who knows how to shop. Men, that's probably your wife. Fresh is better than frozen, but frozen is also very good. Look at this. In the era of COVID, none of this stuff is covered with plastic. As you know, COVID-19 can stay on plastic for up to 72 hours. You're not going to get that when you buy fresh. You can get these good prices at El Superior Market. Here are some of the prices. As you can see, they're pretty inexpensive. Look at these prices. Fresh and organic produce at the 99-cent store. Yes, and often they're pre-cut, so you don't have to do prep. You just throw it into the pan. Excuse me. And you can get your beans, onions. Look at the price of avocados. Your wife will be happy. That's my wife. And here's the cuties, the camote or the sweet potato. You can get your unsweetened almond milk, your greens, your berries, all for really good prices. And it's fresh. Steel cut oats, 99 cents, avena cortada. How about them apples? Juicy, crisp, sweet, crunch, crunch. All of these foods are portable energy for the most part, and they're healing, especially in this food desert we live in. Now I feel like I'm really eating what I'm supposed to eat and serving my country by telling you about it. So some of you might be already doing a lot of these nutrition changes, but you still feel sick. That's often because nutrition, as important as I've just shown you it to be, doesn't comprise the entire pie of preventive medicine. I don't get it. We eat whole, natural, unprocessed foods, exercise constantly, and yet we only live into our 30s. I'm telling you, something is not right here. And it's true. They dealt with a lot of other things that I would love to come to talk with you again in the future that explain all of the other keys to living a long, healthy life. So we talked about food, whole food, plant-based nutrition today. And now it's your turn as a congregation. Which topic would you like to hear about next time? Pastor Bob will tell me how you chose by the audience reaction. Okay, so we talked about whole food today. By show of hands or applause or voice or whatever, who wants to learn next time about restorative sleep? Okay, who wants to learn next time about emotional health? Okay. Here's a little thing about emotional health here that will kind of a preview if you decided to go with that one. Laughter is the best medicine, but your insurance only covers chuckles, snickers, and giggles. So we will get deep into that topic if that's something that you're interested in, and talk about ways in which we can improve our mood naturally. I'm not against using antidepressants or Western medicine, but I think we rely on it too much when the medicine that we eat and swallow dozens and dozens of times a day, that's the real medicine that we should make sure we're getting the right antidepressants. Who's interested in spiritual health next time? You guys probably don't need me for that. I'm sure Pastor Bob does a wonderful job, and I can't wait to meet you guys in person to see him preach. How about exercise and physical activity? Okay. Well, Pastor Bob, you'll let me know what you've decided as a congregation if you would like to have me back. Here is a list of references. You can contact me at pbastian@llu.edu or 97 that should be 909-558-4594. 4594. If you want to meet with a preventive medicine physician one-on-one, call at the Center for Health Promotion 909-558-4594. Most insurances are accepted, and we specialize in telemedicine and video visits so that you can benefit from our expertise from the comfort of your home.